Yo, coming to you live from World Championship in San Jose. Welcome to the Living Legends podcast.
This episode of the Living Legends podcast is brought to you by the Banished Zone in Wernersville, Pennsylvania. More than just a hobby store, but a hub for community building and fostering the love of gaming in all of its forms. Whether you're an avid card gamer, a strategic board game aficionado, or a lover of miniature gaming, they have something for everyone. And their carefully curated collection boasts a wide range of games, ensuring that you'll find the perfect fit for your gaming preferences. They only opened their store in June 2023, but already have been fostering a fantastic community. Make sure you visit their store, thebanishzone.com, and use the affiliate code LIVING10LEGENDS for 10% off one order per customer. Make sure you make the most out of it, and stay banished. That American accent is killing me. Anyway, let's get back to the pod. It's been a while since I've had a document for a podcast. But again, it's just one of those podcasts. Welcome everybody to Living Legends podcast. This is the Azz and Bill takeover today. And I guess
we got Kel assassinated.
That's right.
But just for this week, he'll be fine.
He'll be fine. Yeah, he'll come back. The spider always delivers and all that. But yeah, so we're absent of Kel this weekend because, as you probably know, he is at the US Nats. He's doing the casting alongside Flake, Brian, Pankaj, Ethnic Smoke, and Sam O'Byrne from Three Floating. So I haven't managed to catch any of the footage yet, though. Have you this weekend?
No, I haven't yet. I've been sort of running around.
Been busy,
basically since Thursday. Yeah,
yeah, fantastic. But yeah, that's why Kel's not here this weekend. So it's just going to be me and Bill, and yeah, should be a fun one nonetheless. We've got a few topics to cover, as well as a few questions that we've actually received from the community that love the Living Legends podcast and just our general vibe as a whole, even without Kel. But yeah, thanks for everybody who's joining us today. But yeah, how was your week this week in FAB content, games, just in general?
In general, this past week was just a very hectic week for me.
Yeah,
work was just a little bit more of a slog than it normally is, but like I was kind of mentioning to you prior to us hitting record, I was able to sort of have the week be over and went out to a nice steakhouse last night for dinner, and then had a nice brunch with some friends this morning. So sort of trying to put that behind me. You know, it's over now. I can focus on other stuff.
Yeah.
I'm actually also getting ready for we're recording a new gauntlet tomorrow.
Oh yeah.
It'll be me versus Elliot, and then there will also be a second one of Elliot versus our friend Jay. So a little bit of something for people to look forward to.
Okay, nice.
But yeah, I won't spoil anything too far past that. But
yeah,
it's going to be a really good time. We're going to have a full day, and we're going to do what we normally do on filming days, which is go out and get food at some point.
Oh yeah, so a whole day of just playing Flesh and Blood and then getting some food and all that sort of thing as well. Sounds like a good day to me.
Yeah, so
maybe one day I'll be in
really
the Spike Feeder studio doing exactly that.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. If anybody, well, I don't want to say absolutely anybody, but if you find your way over to Winnipeg, we'll figure out a way to interact in some card game capacity. But for content creator friends, it definitely extends to having people on the channel. So
yeah,
when that does happen, not if but when,
that's it.
You will definitely be in for an IRL Azalea gauntlet.
Probably, yeah. That makes the most
the Azalea
sense.
Ringer.
The Azalea Ringer in real life. Let's go. But yeah, also even maybe a Commander game as well.
Yes. Yeah.
If Jim's up for it.
Oh, I think he would be. Yeah, he's
Fantastic.
always wanting to just have excuses to get content on the docket. So
Yeah.
but yeah, it would be really cool to be able to do that because we're very uniquely set up for large in-person gaming events.
Exactly.
So yeah, no, but we should definitely do that at some point when that happens. And of course, now we're only discussing it now that Kel is gone. If you're listening back to this, Kel, love you, buddy.
Love you, buddy, yeah.
But yeah, anyway, so that was basically my weekend, sort of what I'm looking forward to. How about you? How was yours? What'd you get up to?
Yeah, I got quite a few things going at the moment. So Go Again Gaming is going through some changes. One of those changes with regards to flesh and blood content really is a daily upload. Some of the videos are quite lazy, you know, because at the end of the day, it's hard to make every single day in your life interesting, right? So,
Yeah.
you know, in one of the videos, I compared, you know, your day-to-day life as walking through an industrial estate. Because that's what I was doing on one of the videos. I was walking through an industrial estate, looking around me like, okay, there's not much going on today. You know, it's just an industrial estate, and that's just what happens. But I'm tying that in with flesh and blood in a way where I'm eating only flesh and blood, so it's like a carnivore diet. And I spoke to you about this and Kel before. Before I went to Birmingham, I did a little trial for it, and it's the best I've ever felt. Some people might not agree with it, but at the end of the day, it's an elimination diet, so you're getting rid of all sugar and all carbs, which is great for weight loss. So it's just something that I'm experimenting with, and obviously it goes hand in hand with flesh and blood because flesh and blood is flesh and blood, you know. So we're eating and playing it every single day until Worlds comes around. So it is a daily upload series. So yeah, really enjoying it, and it's giving me also accountability for what I'm doing as well. Because I now have dedicated 6 days so far to doing this. It means that if I slip up, I'm going to look like an idiot on the internet. so
Yeah, it's like making it sort of outside of your, not necessarily, it's directly within your control to keep going. But then there's also sort of farther reaching.
Exactly.
Yeah, there's a farther reaching effect if you just decide to not do it. Yeah, repercussions. Yeah. Exactly.
Repercussions. But yeah, I've been doing that, which is quite cool. So that's Go Again Gaming on YouTube. We'll do all the shout outs later. But yeah, that's been good to just release videos every week and, you know, go exploring in the local area and trying to make a video out of nothing really. So that's all good. I'm playing Talishar every day. You know, just honing Azalea. I'm going to be playing Azalea at an event, which is also at this point going to be common knowledge, so I guess I can say this, but I'm going to Switzerland next week.
Ooh.
Yeah, so I'm going to the Swiss Nationals basically, and there's a PTI event which is in tandem with that, which I'm going to be playing in on the Sunday.
That's awesome.
And my good friend Pascal, who commentated the German PTI event with me, is going to be commentating that event as well. And I might even be able to hop on for some coverage if I scrub out on the PTI event. So that should be good fun. And I'm actually doing a raffle as well. There might still be time for people that are listening to this on Living Legends podcast on Red Zone Rogue and audio platforms to potentially get involved with it. But there's a raffle on my Discord, which is quite cool. It's helping fund the trip basically, because it was quite a last minute thing. Pascal was just like, you should come to the PTI event, Azz. I was like, I don't know if I can. And then suddenly I was researching the flights and I was like, okay, this could be doable because Switzerland, in comparison to the UK, is not too far to get there. It's only a 2-hour flight. It's somewhere I've always wanted to go. You know, there's a flesh and blood event going on there. So I just thought, why not?
Yeah, I saw that. I don't know if I think it was an at everyone sort of thing, but yeah,
it was
part of your Discord. Yeah, I saw that and I was like, you're crowdfunding for something, but you're not mentioning exactly what. You were just like, it's for a trip, a flesh and blood related trip.
That's right. Yeah. So So yeah, I'm not sure whether there will still be time to enter when this goes live. There might be. Discord's open for everyone to go in. So if you want to get some last minute entries in, it's going to be drawn in the next few weeks. So probably will be. Let's say it probably is still active. But yeah, there's loads of things on there. There's a couple of play mats on there, like the content creator stuff that we've been given, both of us, like the LSS dice. I don't need the LSS dice because I don't really use armor as a ranger, so I don't need the armor dice. Because as soon as I block, it gets destroyed, right? So I don't need an armor dice that that tracks
everything that Azalea has just explodes on impact.
It really does. That's right. So I don't need the armor dice. The armor dice are in there. There's loads of other things as well. I mean, the pictures are in the Discord. So if you're interested, go over there. GoAgainGaming.com. Discord link is in there. Been had a bit of a break as well from Baldur's Gate. I know we've been raving on about Baldur's Gate 3. I've had a bit of a break from it because I posted a little tweet as well, and this is the great thing about characters and just storylines in games, right? You get attached to a character. As soon as you complete that character's story, that could potentially be the end of the game for you, because I was attached to the Shadowheart character. I completed her entire story, and I know there's a couple of ways that you can go with it, so I can't wait to go back and explore the other way that you can go with it. I pretty much thought, oh yeah, I've completed the game now. But that's not the case at all. I just completed that character's story, which I think is a testament to why games are great when you gravitate towards a character or a hero.
Yeah, it's kind of impressive actually, just how much stuff they were able to put into the game that makes it feel like a fully fledged experience. Like, for anybody who has played Baldur's Gate at some point, in Act 1 you get access to a place called the Underdark. And in my first playthrough that I spent 70 hours, 80 hours on, I dipped into it for a little bit and then left and didn't go back. And then when I mentioned that to you and Kel, I think last week, you were just like, there's a whole thing down there. There's a whole other area. It would be like playing Tears of the Kingdom without ever experiencing the depths. It's like, so there's that. There's I'm starting up another character again. That's I'm going for a sniper character, like a ranger rogue sort of deal. And I'm using all different companions just to get their storylines as well. And Shadowheart, for spoilery reasons, she's kind of important in at least the times that I've played her. She has a really key role. So I'm like, what happens if you just don't ever interact with her? What happens? So I'm seeing that out too. But there's so much in the game, and like you were saying, you finish one of the character storylines and you're like, well, I was invested in that, and that's really cool. You're interested in going back and seeing how the other storylines pan out too, but it's that still felt like a full game.
Exactly.
And I just think that's it's such a good it's such a testament to how well the game is made.
Oh god, yeah. The amount of stories that you can potentially explore in that is just crazy. But again, it's just also wrapping this back round to Flesh and Blood is the fact that you get engaged to characters, and it's the same sort of thing. You're just all in on the character, and you want to see everything that character goes through, whether it's a new version or whatever. And I'm sure we probably will see that, but that's another discussion for another day, potentially. But yeah, so another thing that I wanted to put out into the aether, and I did this week, is 3 of a kind in Azalea on the website was quite interesting. I only figured this out the other day. I was looking through the hero pages, and obviously I came through to Azalea, and all of the sort of blurbs for the cards have been changed. I'm not sure whether this has ever been there before, or I might have missed it before. It's because it's quite outdated. Because it says on the website 3 of a kind. You got 3 of a kind as an Azalea card. First of all, on Azalea's page at the bottom, 3 of a kind is in there, and it's just like, okay, interesting.
Use of the.
Interesting use of 3 of a kind in Azalea. I've never seen it being played. The Azalea cult has never reported. Levi, the best player in the world, doesn't use it, but it's on the website apparently. So is there something that we don't know? The devs, is there something out there that devs are like, okay, 3 of a kind is really, really good? But on the website, I'll read it out to people that haven't seen the tweet or whatever. It says 3 of a kind. This is on the Azalea hero page. 1 arrow. 1 arrow apiece for 3 scumbags in kind. Play 3 of a kind from your hand when you have a card with reload in your arsenal. So that's niche as it is. You need like a take aim in your arsenal, so you don't have to use
or like a rapid fire,
or a rapid fire. Yeah. Then you'll be able to play 1 card drawn through the reload, 1 card through Death Dealer's effect, and and the third with Bullseye Bracers, which doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah, you can't do that.
So that's outdated. Well, Kel did make an argument on Twitter for the fact that you can do this in UPF or Blitz or whatever, but I just don't think it's really... I don't think you should have Bullseye in there if it's banned in any format. And then alternatively, you can bypass playing cards altogether and simply end the turn with more cards in your hand than your hero's intellect for a monster play the following turn. That bit.
So for that one, that one's interesting because realistically, you're thinking about you have 4. Let's say you have 4 cards in your hand. You pitch one of them to play 3 of a kind. That brings you down to 2 cards and then up to 5, and then you just pass the turn, or you like arsenal. Or if you had a card in your arsenal, then you get to keep 5 cards in your hand or whatever.
Yeah.
Or if you use Tunic, then the math kind of goes up to 6 because you don't have to pitch. That doesn't feel like a good play.
No.
I don't know.
To be fair, right? Okay, so let's go optimal Christmas, magical Christmas land, right? So you've got a 3 of a kind in your arsenal, right, from the previous turn. You have a Tunic trigger available. You play the 3 of a kind from your arsenal. You then draw 3 cards, so you have a 7. No, you have a 7 card hand then. So then you can go into your next turn with a 7 card hand if you do nothing. And this sort of thing was done by a Polish player who we actually interviewed on the Azalea cult. I think it was episode 5. Cool. It was very, very early, and he was running basically a death dealer Azalea combo deck, which basically you had perch grapplers, which gives all of your arrows go again on board the boots. And then he was throughout the course of the game, he was basically playing energy potions down. He was then building up all of these board states for then the end of the game, playing like double 3 of a kinds, 1 in hand, 1 in arsenal, passing the turn, like this article says, and then just cracking back with like perch grapplers, rain razors, all of this stuff on his follow-up turn to just OTK. So for people that are interested in that, there is a video on Go Again Gaming. Maybe Kel can put a card in the top corner or something, because it is an interesting video. It is an interesting strategy. I'm not sure whether it works now, but at least that part of the statement does or can be done to a certain degree. But
I had never even thought of that line of play, but if you're able to crack off like 2 of them in the same turn, and then sort of go back to your turn with, what would that be, like 10 cards in your hand? I feel like that is a much better proposition than even like 7 or like 6 in an arsenal or whatever.
Because then what they were doing is they had energy potions on board as well, right? Like from over the course of the game, they had like 2 or 3 energy potions, and they also played cards like Tri-Shot, which allows you to activate Death Dealer multiple times. So then when they got to the second cycle of the deck, they'd set up all of these cards to then see them, and then they just went off, and that was the way that you could get over. That was the plan, at least, for Pavel's plan to get over Oldhim, because Oldhim was just blocking everything. So that was his plan.
You just like present them with too much in one turn for them to realistically block.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, maybe there's a world in the future where you can sort of set up those sorts of things, but the first part of that text with the bullseye braces and the fact that you can do all of this, I think that's very difficult to do, because you also need a load of resources, and you need all of your arrows to have inherently go again, which won't happen unless you have some setup. But
like you would be playing something like Falcon Wing or something, and it's like putting that into this equation of like, you get to play a card that you reload in, And it's like, if it's a Falcon Wing, cool, you're attacking for 3 with Go again. Awesome.
Yeah, brilliant.
Or like a Sikkim shot, which costs a resource.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know. Yeah,
so,
and then again, like you mentioned, Bullseye Bracers is basically no more.
yeah, exactly. So I just wanted to get that statement out into the open for more people to sort of hear and maybe comment on. So let us know in the comments below if you've ever pulled off one of those turns with 3 of a kind. Because if you haven't, that's the argument that I'm making here for why it's on the website in the first place. But hey ho. So yeah, just going on to a bit of articles from LSS and Flesh and Blood this week as well. So first of all, they speaking about the developers, they did actually have like a Flesh and Blood Twitter Spaces aired the other night. So that was Brian, Carol from Session Blood. Who else was on there? I can't remember. A couple of other devs were on there. But yeah, they were saying about the meta being diverse at the moment. Do you think it is? Because all I'm seeing is bloody Lexi. I'm not sure about the Nats. I haven't checked out the Nats yet, but I think there was a graphic somewhere.
Well, something that I am seeing, at least my locals talk about, because there are a few that are currently at, they're in Vegas for Nats, and so apparently people are playing to counter Lexi. People are playing Fatigue Briar.
Oh, I've seen that Earthbriar. Yeah.
Yeah, I this is the first that I'd heard of it, but like. I don't know. I think that right now, and we have the metagame breakdown from Nats as well. It is a large percentage Lexi. It's currently in the field. There are, from what I can see, 5 decks, 5 heroes. Lexi, Icelander, Dromaya, Bravo, and Briar.
Okay.
And Lexi has the lion's share, 22.4% of the field, with the runner-up being Icelander at 12.2%, so nearly double the next highest.
Right.
Yeah. And then Briar is currently the lowest at 9.1.
So do you think the Briar people then are playing this Earth fatigue list that you mentioned then, or is it just?
It's possible. I don't know.
Do you know how that even works? Obviously, you can use Crown of Seeds, can't she? I guess.
Yeah, you would be. I think you'd be allowed. Or
it's just an Earth helmet, isn't it?
It is an Earth helmet, but I believe it was banned at one point or suspended, maybe because of Oldham.
Oh.
Hang on.
Could have been.
I'll look up the actual ban and restricted because it just needs to happen that way.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm not personally sure exactly how it works. But apparently. According to local player in my meta, Grant, who is also a very talented judge, says, and this I believe is unironically saying, I love that deck is in contention to actually push Briar over the Living Legend line.
Yeah.
Like it is possible that Fatigue Briar can actually take it home because it's positioned well into the current meta.
Oh.
Which I think is really interesting. And I know that a note that you have here is this meta rewarding specialists?
Yeah.
I think that kind of speaks to that. Potentially people who are more comfortable with certain matchups or with a deck that might not be the flavor of the month deck. Like we're saying, Lexi is currently the flavor of the month deck.
Yeah.
Briar has the lowest percentage of the metagame breakdown of Nats right now, but it's possible that it could actually take it home. It could actually win, just based on what we're seeing right now. And I know another friend of mine, Patrick, has been a big Briar fan for a long time. I think his nickname in our Discord is still "Can't Stop Playing Briar Help."
Oh, brilliant!
But yeah, he was even sort of like torn about whether or not he would even want to play Briar in this current meta. So it's. Yeah, it's a lot about like just the confidence that people have in their ability to pilot these specific decks.
And that's what
very, very cool.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what Brian was saying on this FAB developer Twitter Spaces. Is he was saying that this sort of meta you know, it is fairly wide open. You know, it's not the triome of old. It's not like the Prism Starvo, was it Chain, the other one? That was the triangle of heroes that are being played. This is more like a, what do you call it? A bloody fivesome.
Pentaverate, I believe.
That's it. Yeah, well done for that. Pure maths knowledge, pentaverate of heroes.
Let's go.
Let's go. So there's 5 heroes now that are represented. So it's like, you know, it's going to reward these people that are using still Dark Horse decks. As long as they know those decks in and out, you know, you can get rewarded for doing so. I think, obviously following Azalea results and everything. So Levi Rausch, obviously the best player in the world for Azalea, no doubt about it. He was 4-0 on his CC results at Nats. But then he dropped to play the calling instead because he was uncomfortable with draft, which is fair enough. I'm not very good at sealed. You also agree with that. You're not very good at sealed. You maybe don't enjoy it as much. And I don't blame him really because he's an absolute specialist. 4-0 in CC on his favourite hero. Decided that he wants to play the calling instead because it is just CC. There's no random element. There's no piece of it that's out of your control. I don't know whether I really agree with sealed and booster draft and stuff being in these high level events because yes, I guess the draft is quite skill intensive because you're picking the right cards and reading the table and all this and reading signals and all that. But it's still not your cards. It's not your deck, is it? It's just the stuff that you're presented with. So
it's I don't know. For me personally, I mean, I definitely have an unpopular opinion. I think when it comes to like limited formats.
Yeah.
I'm not very good at them personally, so I don't
same.
like them. And it's not because I think that they're like not a correct format. I'm just like, it's just not the way that I prefer to play the game. But I do, from my experience with it, I feel like it's, I just can't really wrap my brain around how people can do things consistently with such a random card pool. I mean,
same.
then like it does sort of speak to the people that are able to consistently pull things off with even just like an okay card pool, because then, you know, you're making the decisions on the fly. You're building the deck to basically your outs, even if you don't have the best possible scenarios. You can still get blown out by the people who pull like good Majestics and stuff. Like I know there was somebody when they were testing for Nats, they were doing a Monarch draft. This is again locally, and they like windmill slammed a Luminaris. And it's like, yeah. I mean, a Prism that has Luminaris versus a Prism that does not have Luminaris. That's like a completely different deck. So
yeah, and that's what the draft format is. It's Monarch at the moment.
Yeah,
so that can happen as well.
So yeah, it just feels like there's a lot of variance, and again, for the people that do like sealed and are really good at it, props to you. But yeah, I think I'm with you in that I don't know how I feel about it, but it's probably just because I don't understand it.
Yeah, same. Yeah, I'd rather you know, blame my loss on the fact that I'm rubbish at deck building on my own CC side rather than, I'd rather do that rather than sealed, but or limited.
Then like, instead of losing because your table actually read the signs properly and choked you out of the hero that you were trying to play, and it's like, cool. And then you like couldn't pivot to another hero because there just like wasn't anything there. Because it's very reasonable that you could just like have a couple packs at the table simultaneously. That it's like, oh, there just aren't any chain cards, and it's like, okay, well, we're gonna pick up all the prism cards.
Exactly. Yeah. But yeah, I think it is rewarding specialists, and fair play to all the people that are out there just repping their favourite heroes, and that goes on to what we were saying earlier about the Baldur's Gate thing. You know, you want to play your hero and your hero only, and that's how you like to experience the game or experience the world that you're in. So the hero conversation comes back all the time because it's just that strong in this game. But yeah, so another cool thing as well is a little milestone event for Flesh and Blood, and that is 4,000 gem stores across the world now. So I've flashed up an image now on the Living Legends podcast, if you're watching the video version, of this image of 4,000 gem stores, which seem to have basically penetrated every area that consumes card games by the look of that image, unless you can think of anywhere else. But I think that's pretty much hit all the massive markets, at least.
Yeah, it's hit a lot of them, at least that I'm aware of. I know that Brazil has a big card game population.
Yep.
And I mostly know that from, we got a lot of comments on Spike Feeder's videos of like, yeah, like we, at our LGS, we just like, this was like years ago at this point, so I don't know if it still happens, but we used to get comments of like, yeah, I'm in Brazil, and we just like put your content on the TV at our LGS and we watch it.
Oh, sick.
Because there just like wasn't accessible content for people at that time. So yeah, I know that Brazil is big for that. I was kind of interested, like, that Iceland apparently has 2 stores.
Really?
Which I think is really funny. It's the ones that are like just off the coast from Europe in sort of like the top middle-ish of that map.
Oh yeah.
Apparently, yeah, there are two gem stores in Iceland, none in Greenland.
None at all, no.
But yeah, and then yeah, we have like Japan. We have I believe like sort of Southeast Asia.
Southeast Asia,
as well.
Yeah. Indonesia and Singapore.
Shout out to,
there's loads of gem stores there.
Yeah. Singapore has a pretty big contingent as well. So yeah, shout out to anybody from these sort of obviously the 2 greatest. Just a second.
The 2 greatest. He will continue in a moment.
Oh, sorry, Riley's just leaving on a camping trip.
Nice.
So
shout out to the 2 greatest.
Yes, the two greatest sort of communities, not from like greatness, just from size alone. Obviously, we have North America and we have Europe, or the UK as a whole. They just have the most number of blips on the map. But just because you don't have quite as many as some other people or as some other areas might, doesn't make your LGS, your space, any less important than everybody else's, because really it's all of those that are really surprising to me and really like heartwarming to see.
Oh god,
and I think there's even a comment that you had pulled from somebody in Mexico, where, as you can see on the map, there aren't any gem stores in Mexico, but there are still like spots on this map, while they might not be represented by any individual blips, like they're still engaging with the game. They're still excited to play it. So I think that that's really cool too. Like, that it's just all over the place.
It really is. Yeah, and obviously you can still see video listeners can also still see the map up at the moment. There was also another Twitter post that actually went round quite a lot, saying, "Oh, we're playing loads of Flesh and Blood in Chile." And Chile on that map there as well doesn't have any pins. Did you see that post? We're playing Flesh and Blood.
I did, yeah.
I think you might have even been tagged in it, because they were tagging all sorts of people to try and spread awareness and fair play, because the store was rammed. I'm not sure whether it is a gem store or not, but it could be with that amount of players that were there. So, just one more thing on this image as well, which I find absolutely hilarious, is the fact that there is a pin in the middle of the Australian outback. I was like, what the hell is that? A pin in the middle of the Australian outback.
Smack dab in the middle of Australia, which, as everybody knows, is completely inhabitable.
Oh, that is hilarious. I think it's the same with America, though, right? They sort of build up settlements in the middle of a desert and still manage to maintain it. Like Phoenix, Arizona, is built on a desert, and that still has
Nevada as well. Like it's just
God knows how they do it, but must be those grid systems. Anyway, But yeah, that's a few things. So our week in Flesh and Blood, and the week in LSS's office as such. And the main topic for today will be why is the FAB community so strong? Because I feel like there's positive experiences all round. I haven't really had any negative ones, and the people that are involved, ourselves included here on the Living Legends podcast, and all of our listeners, I'm assuming, are fantastic as well. But why is that FAB community so strong? So, any first thoughts on it? I know we've got quite a few bullet points here that I've raised, but what are your thoughts essentially to begin with?
Yeah. So this is actually kind of interesting as a discussion point. I did end up having sort of a brief conversation about this sort of thing with the folks over at the IP2 podcast when they had me on. Shout out to them as well.
Oh, yeah.
They're lovely. They're based in still in the prairies of Canada in Calgary, I believe. It was either Calgary or Edmonton. I'm pretty sure it was Calgary. Apologies if I get that wrong. It's just shooting off the dome. But yeah, the main sort of point that I think really stuck with me and just makes sense to me is kind of a mixture of a couple of things. And you have a couple of really good points here as well. I do want to talk about all of them, but the ones that sort of came up were the type of gameplay that the game has in general, as well as the fact that the game itself is relatively new. So local scenes are less fleshed out, as it were. There aren't quite as many people. Like, I was even surprised recently. I went to a local game store on, I think it was a Sunday, and I wasn't aware that they had like any big events on Sundays. Usually it was just for small stuff. I think it was a Pokemon event. And it was completely sold out. Every single table was full.
Wow.
And it was like, yeah, like we couldn't do that for Flesh and Blood at any of our stores, really. We never hit cap on anything.
No.
So with that being said, we have fewer people, which means that people kind of can't go unnoticed, as it were, in a lot of these bigger scenes. Like specifically my experiences with other card games, I will say specifically Magic the Gathering, there are usually so many people at these events that if one person is being a little bit weird, they kind of get washed out in like the rest of the crowd. But for Flesh and Blood events, like there's, 10, 12 people at most. And in between rounds, people will be, they can't hide. So if people are being weird, they usually like see that other people are not being weird and kind of shape up and like, don't be as abrasive as card game players kind of tend to be sometimes. But also then, they see that the environment, specifically speaking from a local aspect, the environment that we have very locally is just extremely friendly. Like it's just people wanting to talk about the game and like the same sort of aspects that they are. It's a very like mature back and forth about things that are going on and like their opinions about decks and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I do think that it's sort of the type of the game and what it sort of lends itself to in terms of conversations and just kind of how small at least our local scene is. It seems to be a pretty big factor.
Yeah, and I think the people that are entering this game as well, they're of a certain ilk, and I think it sort of contributes to some of these factors that I've written down today, which marries up nicely with everything that you just said. So first of all, the maturity of the content. Obviously, this is a darker fantasy game. It's very gory as well, and I think it says somewhere on something that it's for an age and above. I think it does
16 plus. Yeah.
16 plus. Yeah,
I
exactly.
believe so.
So the maturity of the combat, it's darker fantasy and it's 1v1 combat, pitched combat, what you versus someone else, and also the strategy and the gameplay. Because it's so intense, I think it attracts people that are intelligent. So people that are intelligent are normally not dickheads. Essentially, that is the exact note that I wrote down on here today.
I can corroborate that.
Yeah, exactly. So people that play this game are fairly intelligent. That's my experience, at least. Leave a comment if you've had different experiences. Let us know. We can read them out next time or address them next time. But from my experience, the people that are involved with this game are just fairly intelligent and therefore just not really in it to be annoying or weird or what have you. And the community as well, I feel at the moment, even on spaces like Twitter, you know, are you know, these voices that we have and these people that we have in the game are ones to call out the shit if it happens. You know, you can't hide from it, and people are there to support each other, and it's all because of the fact that all these things are stacking up, like the strategy of the gameplay, and you know, brings all these people in, and the maturity of the game, and all this, and LSS's involvement with game stores, supporting local businesses, you know, supporting the creators as well with unique kits and cards that nobody else can get, and therefore, you know, that gives us more sort of drive to make content and carry on doing that, which is free marketing for them and all this. So, you know, there's so many points on all sides, which is good.
Yeah, and I definitely think so too. Like there definitely will be people that have less optimal experiences, and of course that happens in any hobby really. So if you have had a less than desirable experience with it, I just want you to know that we're not trying to like wash that away. We're trying to like, at least personally, like all of the experiences that I've had playing Flesh and Blood have been at the very bare minimum like fine. Like I haven't had any that have made people feel unsafe. I know that there are I haven't had a chance to go out to a local event recently, but I do know that there are starting to there's starting to be more female representation as well.
Nice.
Like female presenting representation, which I think is really good, because I know that Magic the Gathering is pretty bad for that sometimes, kind of pushing non-male presenting people away, and sort of making them feel unsafe. So I was really happy to see that as well.
And again, it's just people that think in a different way. I think with regards to Flesh and Blood, they see positive rather than negative. They just want to involve everyone. They want everybody to learn the game as well. They want people to be good at it. So that whole competitive scene, which is all it's rooted in, grows because they want people to learn the strategies and everything. You know, it's great. And also with regards to learning and all that sort of thing, I had a nice experience the other day. I was playing Talishar just as part of my eating and drinking. Not drinking. I could drink blood, but eating and playing Flesh and Blood every single day.
Eating flesh and drinking blood.
Eating flesh and drinking blood. I'm a Starian all over again. Cazador. Anyway.
Well, that's a spoiler.
That is a spoiler. Whoops.
Whatever. It's fine.
Nobody knows. What was I doing? What was I getting at? Yeah, so I was playing Talishar the other day, and I came across Dagon White on the on Talishar, and he's a very, very respectable competitive player, and he absolutely whipped my ass with a Bravo fatigue deck. But after that, we had a little chat, and he was appreciative of the content. He said he really, really liked my chaotic energy, and the game does need people like of this ilk to be involved with it on on a public speaking content level. So I spoke to Pablo as well. I spoke to Pablo Pintor at the Calling in Birmingham, and again, he was just so humble in the fact that he's just in it to play the game and have fun. That was ultimately his ethos, is to have fun with the game. He just happens to be very good at it, but he does respect the people that are just playing it for fun. It's great. And it's great that the competitives, the people that do take it seriously, and fair play to you because you take home prizes and all that sort of stuff, still recognise the little guys that are just enjoying it. So
yeah, that's another big thing as well. The only thing that I've come across that has been even remotely close to that, and I think it's more of just like a fun, like, jab back and forth between different groups, is people who prefer CC versus people who prefer Blitz.
Oh yeah.
I think that there's like, I've never seen it be anything more than just like a friendly sort of, like I say, like chiding, like, oh, well, whatever, I guess like I drew a bad hand and I guess I lose.
Yeah.
Or like, oh, I could take a nap before my Oldhim player decides what he wants to do on his 17th turn. But yeah, outside of that, like there's even in other card games between different formats, there's like so much elitism and so much like real actual snark that goes into people even having discussions about the fact that other formats exist. So personally, yeah, I haven't seen anything like that, and I hope that it's like that in sort of the rest of the format, the player base at large. Because really, like, if you don't want to play Blitz, then just don't play Blitz. Like, just play CC. There's tons of other options. And if you do want to play Blitz, then play Blitz. There's things like skirmishes. There's things like battle hardens. Like, you can still do competitive stuff while playing Blitz. You can still do casual stuff while playing Blitz, and same thing with CC. So I think that the fact that everything is sort of very well supported by LSS as well, and giving them all their own opportunities to shine, I think is really important as well. It makes it feel like, even if people might think that Blitz is not like as good of a format as CC, there are still major events for Blitz. So
yeah,
the company says it's important. So there you go.
Yeah, exactly. Speaking of the company as well, yeah, I mentioned this in the statement I made just a moment ago, but it's their whole ethos and their whole sort of the reason why they do this. Their name as well, the name of Flesh and Blood, is ingrained in local game stores, and that's what they want to do. They want to support local game stores, which are safe places for a lot of people to go as well. So that just builds community and makes it stronger as well, because there's the amount of support that they give the actual in real life place for people to go. Yeah, just the company in general is just fantastic, and the people that they've attracted are nice people, obviously. So yeah, I think it's just an overall positive experience to be involved with it. And there is going to be stories of negative experiences. There's the same with everything really. But leave a comment in the section below, and hopefully we can address it next time on the Living Legends podcast and maybe go into it a little bit more. Yeah, we like to hear.
Yeah, I'm interested in hearing the good and the bad.
Yeah, exactly.
If you have really good experiences, let us know. And if you have bad experiences, then we will commiserate with you.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, so that was I think a message that we needed to get across, because I think it was very strong. But we've got a load of mailbags as well today. So a lot of people want to ask Azz and Bill questions today on this episode. So I've collected quite a few. So we'll go straight into these now then. So Seba Koragi from Discord says, what do you think good reprints would be in the new slot of Bright Lights? Do they need to be generics, or could they be talented cards or type of cards?
They've been pretty light on information about it so far, bright light about it. Yeah. But I think they're kind of going to be using it. If I was to put money on what I think they're going to do with it, I think they're literally just going to look at cards that would be good reprints and just kind of slot them in. Especially with we were kind of mentioning last week that it's like 1 in 15 packs, so it's like less than 2 a box that you would normally get of these reprints. Yeah. I think it makes sense, especially if there's a wide amount of them. Like, say if there's 30 reprints or something. Getting any one of those that potentially has a tunic in it is like a pretty low chance. But if they keep having good cards in there, like even if they put Art of War, if they put Command and Conquer in there again, if they put even other equipment that is just like unbelievably expensive, like New Horizon, like that card's like $250 or something Canadian still. Like, yeah, it's and it is like a really good card, but it also does sort of gate people from being able to play Lexi to a high level, which obviously she is a high level hero right now. So I think they could also be typed in talented cards. The only issue with that though is that I don't think there are many typed talented cards that, or I guess for type, I think we could realistically have like hero specific things. I think the only consideration there is that the generic cards tend to be the more expensive ones, at least outside of equipment. Like there are obviously expensive generic equipments, the main one being Spring Tunic, but yeah. But yeah, like I said, for just kind of even the big three, like you could put an Enlightened Strike reprint in there again, and I don't think people would complain about that.
No.
Like, it's just a good card. Art of War is expensive, it's also a good card. CNC, good card. I would love for them to just like look at sort of the most expensive or most even meta impactful cards and have those be the ones that they decide to reprint. I know that they also said for the new slot that it's not all going to be reprints. There might be new cards in there too.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think for the reprints, I would love to see if they just hit the big, like 5-6 cards that are still expensive and maybe add a couple more that have since been added that are also expensive. But yeah, what about you? What do you think about this new slot?
I think it's good. I think we've discussed it on the last couple of episodes for sure. As a way, I think they could really introduce cards that help with the meta at hand. If there's a boogie man or boogie woman or whatever that's doing horrible things to the meta and warping it, you can print these things in your next set to maybe hose that hero or do whatever, like Warmongers did for Azalea. They saw Azalea was going to be really good, and they was just like, let's just take away the ability to play and put Warmongers in the set.
Yeah, let's just soft ban Azalea and then we'll move from there.
We'll move from there because let's be honest. But yeah. So actually, I did have. Let me just bring this up. Actually, no, I can't. Actually, no, I can bring it up on my phone. I don't want to mess up the Discord overlays. I did have a question that I didn't put in the document, which actually relates to that.
Okay.
So let me just try and bring it up. But I think it was basically. I should be able to find it. Okay, yeah, here it is. So, in regards to reprints, what impact do you think the new set will have on how secure collectors feel with their current investments into staple cards that might be added at will into the expansion slot? So that's something that I thought we'd bring up now as one of the other questions, but because we were speaking about the reprints. So, because you own quite a lot of cards, I don't own too many cards of that stature. I own Ranger cards, and that's pretty much it at the moment, to be fair. But as someone who owns quite a lot of cards of high value, what do you think about the fact that they could be reprinted and all this?
Personally, I think that if you are treating any card game as an investment, I think that's the incorrect way to interact with it. I think that if you're looking for an investment opportunity or a portfolio or something like that, there are better options available than card games. Investors and speculators do tend to just make the games that they interact with less accessible for the average person by driving up prices and lowering availability. I could go on about that, but that's sort of without being too antagonistic about it. Yeah. I personally don't feel that that's something that LSS should protect, like going over and above to do so. Like, obviously there's something to be said about how Yu-Gi-Oh does their reprint strategy, which I think is, of all of them currently, the worst possible way to do it. Because they'll print the most powerful over the top card that you've ever seen. It'll be in the most, like, it'll be like a short printed secret rare or something like even lower than a regular secret rare in terms of rarity, or even higher, I suppose. And then they'll reprint it to death over the next like 2 or 3 months after people already put all the money in, and then it's worth nothing again. Like, I think that really, really sucks. But the difference between like Command and Conquer being a $100 card versus being a $50 card, that's a 50% loss for the investor, but it's also that much more accessible for the average player. I still think that $50 is really high for a piece like Command and Conquer. I think that the $50 plus slot equipment being in there, I think, is fine. And that's, maybe a hot topic, but because you only need to buy one of them, you're making a bit of an investment into your deck. Instead of having to buy 3 of a $50 card, you buy one $50 card. And it's like, you save up for it. It's still a card game. Like, there is going to be some amount of value associated with the cards. But yeah, for reprint strategies, especially for things that are way, way over and above, the prime example and the one that they've already highlighted being Tunic. Tunic is like closing in on $400 Canadian. That's too much. It's like, and if you look at that card and you say that's how much that card is supposed to be, you're wrong. I'm sorry. I think that for a card that is as generically good as Tunic is, it should not be $400. That's like some people's half of rent for a card. I don't know.
That's right.
That just doesn't feel proper to me, especially with it being reprinted. The most common version of it so far is still $400. Like, having them reprinted won't touch the value of the really like high end versions. Like I have I have a playset of not first edition for either of them, but Rainbow Foil Enlightened Strikes and Command and Conquers and Art of Wars.
Right.
If they reprint any of those, the values of mine are not actually going to change all that much because they're the sort of the not necessarily the pinnacle, but they're on the higher end of collectibles. So if they reprint Command and Conquer again, it's not going to change the value of my foil Command and Conquers. It might slightly, but it's not going to tank them. They're always going to be some amount of value. So having an accessible version of these cards, I think, is good for just everybody. I don't know. Personally, that's how I feel. I kind of ran around the point a little bit, but
what if the reprints are like white border, for instance? You know, the reprint slot is white border Tunic or white border whatever, because it still makes the card enter the market, but it doesn't touch the aesthetic sell of the ones that the collectors already have, like you just said.
Yeah. Like, and I think that's absolutely fine. We even saw that, again, the examples for these are very few, but they are very important. Like, they reprinted Command and Conquer, and that card stayed the same price. Even the reprinted version, which is white border, is still, as I'm recently aware, the same price.
I think
and
so.
Same with Tunic. Tunics are still the same price. You can get a white border Tunic for like the same as like a Krunic.
Oh, really?
Which,
wow.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they're still about the same value. So, I don't know. I think it's kind of crazy.
I guess that's probably the answer, then, isn't it? If they're still reprinting cards, the value stays the same because it's just, I guess the card value in this game, because the OP system is at the heart of it. It's about the price is what people want because of the meta that they're in.
Yeah,
and that drives the price, or they're just everlasting cards like the Tunics and the generics, right?
Yeah, for talented and for like talented and typed cards, I think that those tend to fluctuate more with just the metagame in general. Like right now, obviously, just with how we're seeing the CC format evolve, there's much more of a focus on trying to prevent Lexi from being able to do a bunch of things, which is why Warmongers is so good, because it prevents people from doing a bunch of like things all in one turn and sort of dipping between actions and non-attack actions and stuff.
Yeah.
But if the meta all of a sudden shakes out to, Bravo is the best deck, I don't think that Warmongers is that expensive of a card anymore, because it doesn't do anything against Bravo.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. Bravo doesn't care. He just swings for 11. With
you just pitch your whole hand and attack, and then you're like, hey, cool, your turn.
Yeah.
Or even like, no, it would still be pretty good against something like Greiner, because Greiner likes using like barraging beatdown and stuff.
That's right. Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. It's stuff like, it reminds me of back in the day, during the real sort of high points of the chain meta, where Snag from Crucible of War was like a $35 card because it was so good against Riftbind. And then as soon as chain left the meta, it became like a $1 bulk Majestic.
Yeah,
because it was just narrow. So I don't know. It's to sort of bring it back into the main topic at hand. I think that the generic cards are less likely to be, especially when they're as powerful as, again, something like Tunic, something like Command and Conquer. Those ones are pretty safe to reprint because their value will stay probably largely the same unless they get like a really big influx of reprints. But things that are sort of more meta relevant probably don't need as many reprints. Like, I would be surprised if they decided to reprint Warmonger's Diplomacy anytime in the next year. I don't think that it's a card that necessarily requires a reprint. I think that it is just good right now. I was wrong about it initially, though, so I might be wrong about it now. This might be the new Art of War. This might be the new Command and Conquer, E-Strike. Like, it just might be the new generic card that's in that bracket. But yeah, that's something that we'll just have to see. And I'd like, kind of like you were saying previously, with the sort of flexibility of this slot, and then being able to look at the meta at one time and be like, okay, we're going to reprint this card now. I think that that's going to be really important too.
Yeah, I think so.
Like a more frequent pressure release valve for stuff like that.
Yeah, because that's what Living Legend is, and we'll go into another point about Living Legend now from Dave at DGTCG. When you speak about pressure valves, this is the system that allows LSS to rotate a hero if they're doing too well. This is the Living Legend system. So Dave says, what will the meta look like after Nationals season with so many LL points available? How many heroes will be gone from the CC game? Which is an interesting point, because Briar is right on the cusp, and so is Icelander at the moment. So, well, she's not right on the cusp, but she could potentially rotate out as well if she keeps doing as well as she has been. I mean, at this point in time, I don't know what's happened with the calling and the US Nats, because that's still going on, I believe. But Briar is still on the 2 points needed to rotate out. When she rotates out, obviously that's going to have repercussions. Rosetta's not going to be available anymore, and all these tank Briar lists that you might have said about are just going to fade away. Channel Mount Heroic's going to fade away. But and then Icelander's slowly behind as well on 762 points at the moment. So again, when Icelander rotates out, that means Icelander's gone and Oldhim has gone. So there's no other ice apart from Lexi. So I think that will speed everything up again. I think when Icelander goes, that's going to speed everything right up again, because she's the only one really that's really holding the aggro back, I think, at the moment, is the ice. Yeah, the tools that she has right now are really allowing the game to sort of be slightly slower. I know that it did kind of pick up when Oldhim Living Legend did. Like, there was a noticeable change in just how people were building their decks and what they were preparing for. So now, again, like, Lexi is the top dog in terms of just percentages, but like, Icelander is still the runner-up. Like, there is still a decent amount of Icelander running around, and people do have to be prepared for that. I know that people are also, in general, playing less Arcane Barrier, because it really is just Icelander and Briar that are sort of at this top level that use arcane damage. So if there's just basically no one to worry about for arcane damage, then sideboards are going to get a huge change up. There's going to be just like, nobody needs Null Rune anymore, which would then, in some ways, wrap back around, and then maybe it allows somebody who uses arcane damage to come back into it. Like, maybe Viserai all of a sudden just gets a resurgence because people aren't ready for him anymore. Yeah. That's the great thing about how these things work, isn't it? It's just always a revolving situation of who goes in, who goes out, based on the Living Legend system. So, I mean, just to go on Dave's question there, I'm not entirely sure what it's going to look like. Briar is, for the longest time, seeming to be right on the cusp, but nobody can just get it, right? Yeah. Nobody's just not able to get past the finish line there. But yeah, I think it'll be interesting, because they did also revise the amount of points that events give out. I don't recall what they were previously, but I think it was actually a decent amount less for like the higher level events. Because now up at the top for Pro Tours and World Championships, there's a total of 200 points that are given out for those events. Callings in US Nats are 100 each. So it might kick into, like, for at least the overperforming decks, it might kick them into gear. Like, we might actually see Lexi all of a sudden, if she tops a bunch of events, might just see her all of a sudden surge up to number one. That wouldn't surprise me if that happened. Yeah, because even if she wins this one, then she'll go from 412 to 512. Which is already a huge jump. And then, it doesn't take much more than that, especially when there are, there's more national championships happening.
with there being just more stores and more opportunities for people to play stuff, even with stuff like PTIs and Road to Nats and stuff like that. Like there's just a lot more of these things happening. So we might see another sort of kicking into high gear. Like if Icelander ends up living legending and the format speeds up, then there might just be an opportunity for all these aggressive decks that were kind of being held down to also speed up in terms of point accrual.
Brilliant.
It would be very interesting. So yeah, I think right now the only thing that we really have to worry about is Briar getting kicked out of the spotlight. Icelander, I think, will likely not be far behind after that. And then it's kind of anyone's guess. After Icelander, the next highest is Dash, which, now that I say it, with Bright Lights right around the corner, she might be getting just an absolute influx of new power cards.
Oh, God, yeah.
So she might not be too far behind either. But we'll just have to see.
But then if you look at the Living Legend board, Lexi's going to go up this season for sure. So she's on 412. She's going to hit 500, 600 probably by the end of this. I don't think there's really a deck that counters her percentages right now. She's just too efficient, just too good. So she's going to be up at like 600 odd. Icelander could maybe get another 100 or so, perhaps. So she could be 860 odd. So they're still going to be loitering around when Dash enters the fray with all of her new cards and Teklo Vossen appears and all this. We don't know whether there's another hero in the set yet, do we? Not yet. Did they say 3?
No. I think there are 3. We know Teklo Vossen already. We know that there's a Dash hero, and then we know that there's a third hero, but they haven't even announced the name yet. So,
yeah. But Dash, the original Dash, that is Dash Inventor Extraordinaire, is on 600 points, basically 596. She's one of those heroes that wins a lot of. I think she's won a couple of Southeast Asia callings, like Singapore, maybe a few times, or something around that area. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see whether the new Bright Lights cards will work with that hero who is on 600 points. Because there's obviously going to be a new Dash, isn't there? You know, it's going to be interesting to see who runs what and why with these new cards. Yeah,
my my thing that I'm keeping an eye out for right now, especially because they're going to be just printing an entire set of mechanologist stuff and introducing 3 additional heroes, is if any of them can challenge the world record that that Starvo currently has of fastest LL.
Fastest LL hero, yeah.
I'm absolutely positive that the design team, shout out Brian Gottlieb, I'm absolutely positive that they are keeping that in mind. They're like, we don't want this to happen again. But, you know, things do happen, especially when you're creating such a huge set for one particular hero. So it'll be interesting to see if unintentionally, maybe Dash IO is just stronger than regular Dash and just allows her to absolutely wipe the floor with everybody for like 3 months, and then she gets banned.
It is a funny thing, right? Because if you look at the newer heroes in the roster of this Living Legend table, they're towards the bottom. Vincent, Prism, Riptide, Arachne, Azuri, all of the new ones that have come into the fray CC-wise are all at the bottom of the list. Who's at the top of the list? We've got Monarch heroes, old Monarch heroes, and Aria heroes at the top.
Yep.
So, and those were the sets that were back to back, right? Monarch and Aria. So I think just that period of time that Flesh and Blood was going through was just OP as hell.
It was quite the time for card design. It's the exact time that I got into the game. And it just so happens that Tales of Aria is like maybe the strongest set that they've released thus far, at least just in terms of like percentage of competitively viable cards. Tales of Aria is just insane.
It really is, yeah. But yeah, I'm not sure if there's going to be any LLs this season before
Mhm.
Bright Lights, but we'll be proven wrong happily. But
Briar's so close. Come on.
Briar is so close.
Just get her there.
Just get her there, please. Somebody, preferably the tank version, because that'll be funny. But yeah, we've actually had just going down the list here of the stuff that we've had. We've had an inbox into the Living Legends podcast at gmail.com. This is from Gabby W saying, "Hey, LL's podcast. I am Mustache Woo on the Discord." Okay, so he's on Discord. A main ninja and ranger player. Awesome. I wanted to try Mechanologist for a long time, but the card pool was limited, so I wasn't fond of Dash and Data Doll. Fair enough. I'm hoping that Bright Lights might give you a second chance. I love the whole mech aesthetic, but mostly I like the hero and their play style. There's going to be lots of play styles for this for Mechanologists as well, right? With this new set.
Yeah, I think they've basically all but confirmed that there are going to be 3 maybe new types of play styles for Mechanologist. Obviously, items are going to be sticking around, and we know about the Iron Man sort of super suit play style. But yeah,
there's going to be a lot of there's going to be a lot of reasons to get into mech, and that's why we went on a little bit of the hero problem last episode, where obviously when Kel was here, and obviously he'll be back next week on the podcast again, of course. But yeah, that was one of the things that we spoke about, was the fact that there's going to be a load of play styles for this Mechanologist, or these Mechanologists, because it's all Mechanologist set. So there's going to be loads of different ways to play. Maybe that mirrors something that you've been playing before. You say that you're a ninja and ranger player there, Gabby. So there might be a play style for you in mech, and especially if you like the aesthetic. You know, I do as well. I love steampunk and all that stuff. So it's going to be like arc reactors and Gundam Wing style stuff now. So even more so. But Gabby goes on to say, this is Mustache Woo. I think we've interacted with him before. So they go on to say that they want to see the hero that appears in Mysteria. The Ranger hero, that appears in Mysteria. Look up Ira hero. Okay, we'll have a look at that. Savage Lands women from Blessing of Focus. You know, there's a Ranger on Blessing of Focus. The card that I've never used, I'll say. And then the Native American from Skybound Shot and Wayfinder Crest. Yeah, Wayfinder Crest. That's quality art. Love that. So yeah, I would love to see more of those heroes that are. It's the same with like things like Shock Charmers. Loads of people love that art and want to see who that hero is and who that character is and stuff. But that's another great thing about this game, isn't it? The art is fantastic, and you want to see some of the characters that aren't necessarily characters as well.
Yeah, because they have a lot of sort of a supporting cast of characters that are in the arts for all these cards, and you really want to see them. Like, even for example, the sort of brute shaman that they've been sort of alluding to in a lot of the cards, like Spoiled Skull, even things like there's another headpiece that I always forget the name of from Crucible of War for brute.
Skullhorn.
Skullhorn, yeah. And then even like card art like Reincarnate. Like there's some magical sort of thing happening in the Savage Lands that we've been sort of vaguely aware of for a while, but I'd love to see them explore that. And yeah, it's the same for Rangers as well. They keep printing all these really beautiful arts that have all these different types of Rangers. And I just looked up the Ira hero card. I didn't realize that there were 2 characters sort of behind Ira to her left and right. And one of them has a bow and a quiver.
Oh, right.
Yeah. So yeah, I think it's something that I really hope is something that they play into like soon. And it feels like that is maybe something that they're trying to do with Bright Lights, even just printing a bunch of different options for this one specific class. So we might be able to see like, I know that they said that this really wouldn't happen outside of the Emperor, but in some mechanically cohesive way, like a Brute Ranger or like a Ninja Ranger, like something like that. Like, I think that would be really cool if they were able to do something like that and give these beautiful art pieces sort of a more mechanically cohesive and unique way to shine
Yeah,
instead of
God,
just
yeah.
being relegated to the art of it.
I can't wait for the Savage Land set, and all the brute mains out there are going to oh yeah, we're going to get all these massive 6 attacks, and suddenly it's just like a necromancy sort of ogre in a dress sort of situation.
It's all non-attack actions, and they all have a 6 on them, but it's the cost.
Absolutely, yeah. 6 cost non-attack action.
Oh god, Tommy Fresh is going to murder me in my sleep.
Shout out to Tommy Fresh, actually. When he saw that we were doing an Azz and Bill episode, he just says, "I love you both," as his sort of contribution to that.
Yeah, big fan of Tommy Fresh on this side too. Thank you, brother. Looking forward to our Bright Light set review if you're listening.
Oh god, yeah, absolutely. Over on Fresh and Buds. But next comment comes from Full Metal Dragon, which I believe was a comment on the last Living Legends podcast on YouTube. So again, if you engage with that content on YouTube, you write comments on there, they probably will appear on here at some degree of this new sort of comment, stories, questions section that we've got at the end. So this is an interesting one. As someone who has yet to really delve into FAB, I was wondering if you could explain in one of your videos or podcasts how the entire Flesh and Blood pro scene works. I keep hearing about skirmish seasons, but how do they fit within the overall pro scene with all the other nifty titles and events like Battlegrounds and that other one I can't remember the name of? There is a lot going on in FAB. But a newbie guide on how this all actually comes together would be good, as it is all very confusing. So do you have some good knowledge over the FAB scene with regards to that?
I sort of do. Something that I would recommend as well, because I'm basically just going to be referencing this. They have actually a really nice infographic on the official website. It's under fabtcg.com/organizedplay. And it's the organized play pathway, which it is kind of confusing, especially because there are all these different names for these events. But yeah, it's kind of set up like a weird looking pyramid. There's tier 1 events all the way up to tier 4 events, and tier 4 is the highest level of competition. Tier 1 events, basically just any on-demand or there's another thing called Play Anywhere events, as well as your weekly armories. They allow you to accrue experience and just wins in general, which plays towards your overall experience amount that gets put on your gem profile, as well as your 90-day XP amount, which I believe plays into when higher level events show up, specifically like Pro Tours and stuff like that. You can actually get invites for having a high enough 90-day XP amount. So it just kind of incentivizes you to keep playing it.
Yeah, that's where the term sort of FAB grinder comes in. So if you've ever heard that, Full Metal Dragon, FAB grinders, I don't want to stereotype these, but this is the term that it means, right? FAB grinders will go to their armories every week and grind for XP, and XP then equates to the Pro Tour invite or the Nationals invite. If you're seen to be playing all the time, accruing XP, you are going to get invites to these things, because LSS recognize that you're playing the game and they want to reward those people that are playing it, even at an armory level. So all of your wins at armories give you XP, which then could potentially get you into one of the Pro Tour events, which are obviously a lot more competitive.
There is sort of one tier 1 event that kind of bridges the gap between it and the next stage, which are skirmishes, which are sort of short sort of seasons where stores will have their skirmish, which is usually Blitz. And the prizes for that one, as far as I know, there are specific like skirmish mats that are given out, as well as this past season there was the Cold Foil Azalea was sort of the top tier prize for it. I don't believe you get anything sort of further than that, but it is still a way for you to kind of be competitive without kind of hitting up to the next tier. The next tier has still stuff that would likely be local to you. There's the Road to Nationals, ProQuest, and Battle Hardened. All of these really allow you to be competitive to try to get an invitation to a tier 3 or tier 4 event.
And they're normally open entry as well, aren't they? You
Yeah.
can normally just go to one of these ProQuest Battle Hardens, and if you do well enough, you'll get the invite just by paying to get in, essentially. So there is a way to do that as well. So if you want to just learn the game in your own time and then just hit the events where you just pay to get in, and if you win or if you get so far, get the invite, you can also do that. You don't have to grind, but some people will do that to get in on XP for like their nationals events or whatever.
Yeah, so these are still like competitive, but they are also accessible. They're still like, you can reasonably, even if you're not a fully enfranchised player, but you do have an idea of what's going on, you can still just go into one of these. If you end up getting, depending on what your turnout is, top 4 or top 8, I think even if it's big enough, top 16. It might not be top 16, it might just be top 8, but you can get invites to higher level events. Then the Calling is the tier 3 event that is open. It happens at most of the larger sort of flesh and blood events. So anybody can sort of enter into these ones, but they are very competitive.
Yeah.
You can get like gold foil legendaries. You can also get Pro Tour invites from the Calling. Then there's also Nats, or National Championship, which is invite only, that you get from Road to Nationals or 90-day XP, I believe.
Yeah.
And then sort of to top it all off, there's the tier 4, which are the biggest ones. There's Worlds, which happens once a year. It is invite only. It is like the cream of the crop, best of the best. Like, these are the people who are duking it out for very big prizes. These are the ones, there are gold foil, specifically World Championship branded hero cards that you get as the prize for this.
Yeah.
And I think so far there's been like 3 given out. They are like so unbelievably cool, but also so hard to get.
Gosh, imagine being able to get a gold foil hero of your choice that says World Champion on it. That would be just
like
mental.
And it's like written in stone that it was given out to you. Like on the promo page for Flesh and Bloods, for the collector's corner, it says like there has been one given out. There has been like of all the heroes, or like there have not been any given out yet. So I think that's really cool as well. And then the official Pro Tour is, I believe, also invite only. Both of those would be invite only, and also once a year. Or sorry, Pro Tours are multiple times a year. Worlds is once a year. And those happen on sort of a continent scale. So they happen, there'll be multiple across different continents. Worlds is just, there is one this year. It's in Barcelona. And we will be there.
Yeah, we will be there. Absolutely.
Intend to be in Barcelona at the same time. But so that's like a really broad overview of what the sort of organized play program is for Flesh and Blood. I hope that made sense. I'm not
definitely
that much of a, I'm not really that far into it as a competitive player. I know of it just very vaguely. But so there's a lot of stuff that kind of ties in together. I think the 4-tier system that they have makes it a little bit easier to sort of grasp. They kind of all like build up as the chain goes on. But
exactly. And it's again, that's that whole grassroots journey, supporting the local game store and all of this. It allows you really to just build up from the ground. You start on the ground floor, you do what you're comfortable with, and then you just go up the ladder essentially. Or just pay to go into a calling event, and then if you do really well, you feel really good and all this. It's a nice journey. I partaked in my first calling at Birmingham, and I started off really well, and you probably would have heard the story if you've listened to the podcast, but that got me the itch to want to play more competitively, albeit
Absolutely.
I know I'm not that good, but hey ho. But OP Pathway is the link, as you just said there. That's the best way to find it if you want to have a look and go through it all. But yeah, so a couple more comments here before we move on to tweet of the week and then close it off. So the first one comes from these, I think, more comments on last week's video, which discussed the hero problem in Flesh and Blood, or that's what Kel decided to call it. So this is from the Navis Broad Bryn or something. I can't read the rest of it.
The
9757.
Knavish Road Bin R Gravel 9757, I believe.
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is a comment in response to the hero problem, and this is a bit of not negative but concerned content. With regards to it, and I think it's completely valid. So they say, as much as I hate to say it, I think there will be a downturn with Flesh and Blood and Bright Lights. We have one mech player in the city, and there's chatter about a lack of casual play, which is never good. Either way, I'll keep stocking it in my store, but Mexico really needs LSS official support. Oh, is this what you were getting at earlier? Mexico?
Yeah, this is the one that I sort of saw previously. And I think really does tie into that as well. Like, there are still a contingent of people that want to play this game that might not have the right amount of support. Like this one is, like this person is saying here.
Yeah.
Obviously, they are potentially an LGS owner. Sort of what I'm getting from that, because they say Mexico really needs LSS official support, so I can at least have armory events for my customers.
Yes.
And yeah, I think that's. I don't know what the process to become a gem certified store is, but if that's something that you can do, sign up for. Again, I'm not an LGS owner, so I could be totally out to lunch on how that process works. I definitely think it would be worthwhile. I think that the concern of having one mech player in the city with the prospect of a full mech set on the horizon is definitely concerning. But at least from trying to keep it as positive as possible, maybe this one set will introduce enough variation into mechanologist as a class that maybe some other people locally start to become interested. It is still very unfortunate to have to kind of stare that down and grasp at what the positives could be. So yeah, if anybody from LSS or Mexico is listening, give them a gem store.
Yeah, definitely. I think the gem store, because I actually reached out to FAB Organised Play a couple of weeks ago, because there's obviously this new store in my town, which could be interested in stocking it, because I just basically sold them the whole idea of Flesh and Blood, and it could attract loads of customers, and they're up for it. They want to get more customers in, of course. And the process, I believe, is just filling out a form and just making sure your store meets certain prerequisites. I don't think they have to select you. You have to apply for it. I don't think they have to select you. So if you're listening to this, I'm not going to try and pronounce the name again, but I think it's pretty much just as long as your store meets these prerequisites, you can sign up to be a gem store and get that armory kit support and all this. But yeah, the fact of your customer base, that is the hero problem. If they don't like mech for whatever reason, they don't like the aesthetic or whatever, that is an issue that you're going to have. Yeah, it's a bit of a shame. But luckily with this set, with Bright Lights, at least you can play mech in lots of different ways, and you can still have a sealed or limited experience out of that box as well. Which again, like we said the last time, is a positive way of potentially converting non-mech players into a mech player, because there's different ways to do it, and you're playing sealed because that's what it allows you to do, basically.
Yeah.
Moving on to the next one. I believe this is Mara from Blackwing Studio. This is Blackwing Dragon. It's gotta be, surely. This has to be Mara. Blackwing Dragon, let's be honest. And the icon, you can't see this, visual viewers, but the icon is an M, so it's gotta be Mara. It's gotta be. But she agrees with what I was saying. She says, honestly, I think choice restricting is a great idea that's at least worth trying out on LSS's part. So I believe what she is referring to is my idea to ban things in certain heroes. That was one of the main discussion points last week on the Heroes Problem episode. It allows for game balancing without overcorrection, which can often hinder the playing experience for a larger group than what it was intended. And the argument that it can get complicated later on, which is what Kel was saying, is not that big of an issue, considering people seem to be able to grasp the fiddly restricted lists in Yu-Gi-Oh! Even as a new player. So again, that's something what I said as well, is that and again, what we were saying earlier about the people that are playing this game are intelligent. They know for themselves what they can or cannot play. And the people that are playing at a ridiculously competitive level will do that research anyway, regardless. So I think banning things in certain heroes is a good idea, and I'm glad that someone of that ilk, who was the semi-finalist, the runner-up in the PRAB, the PRAB. I'm losing my words, so I'm so excited that she agrees with me. The FAB Pro Tour Baltimore has the same sort of thoughts on that. So yeah, I know you were sort of, I know you could see both sides, Bill, on the last episode.
I'm still like optimistically hesitant, if I could describe it even as that. It seems like a weird way to do it, but yeah, I do like the idea of it. Like I do like the prospect of, you know, specific, especially because situations like, this is an extreme example, but
yeah,
if Rosetta Thorn was still strong but not as much of a backbreaker as it currently is, and it was like, you know, the best option for a bunch of other Runeblades, and then all of a sudden Briar gets banned and now Runeblade doesn't have Rosetta Thorn at all anymore.
Yeah,
like, why are they paying for the sins of one specific hero? Cards have different functions within different decks. Like even, you know, Death Dealer can be played in all of the Rangers currently, but it might only be, this is another sort of just general example, but like, what if the Snapshot Death Dealer combo deck really took off in Lexi and it made that deck way too good? If she's winning because of Death Dealer, there's no downside for her to play it, because there's no chance that it'll get banned before Azalea then hits Living Legend and it gets banned from that. Like, I don't know. It's a weird implementation, at least in that aspect, for the what are they called? Signature weapons, I think, that I've always been a little bit hesitant about. And I think that does extend out to sort of, at least the example extends out to other decks as well. Yeah. Like we were kind of mentioning, like Bullseye Bracers gets completely banned because it's overperforming in Lexi. It's like, okay, well now Azalea was using it totally fine. Like it's something that she's able to use, but not to an absurd degree or anything.
That's right. Because the play patterns aren't the same. The play patterns in
play patterns aren't the same at all. Like it is the same card in both decks, but they serve different purposes. They function differently.
The ceiling on Bullseye Bracers is lower in Azalea because she doesn't have access to Voltaire, which is the elemental bow, which is the thing that breaks it. And Three of a Kind. You know, we went on that statement earlier about how Azalea can use Three of a Kind. She cannot use Three of a Kind in the same way Lexi can, because of the fact she can't load the bow twice without tri-shot, all this garbage.
And again, yeah, it's, you know, it's just one of those things that I do think that it is worth trying. I agree with that very much. I think that like they did with this past skirmish season of trying out Blitz with sideboards. Like it was just something that they decided to try and just see if it worked. And they said that it was going to be like a temporary thing, just as like a proof of concept. So I think that the fact that they've proven that they can do this, or that they have the ability to accept it as a possibility, for them to be like, okay, well, for this skirmish season, we're going to try it out that this is only banned in this deck. And if it works, and if it like ends up being a positive change, then maybe it's something they could just implement.
Yeah, but can you, that's what I mean. Can you really see, for both asking you and the audience, if Bullseye Bracers was unbanned in Azalea, would she come storming out of the gate? I don't think so. It just allows us to do the things we used to do without having to run common equipment slots.
Without having to run what's that one? Touch, virulent touch, or no? That's the attack.
Toxic tips and
toxic tips,
braces of belief, and all this. And I've had some stories where braces of belief has been good for getting extra damage through on a dominate, but the versatility of the bracers were just is missed all round, and the fact that it's AB as well is just a bit of a kicker. But anyway,
there is also just one final thing. I think that it would be really good if Shiana had access to Stubby Hammerers again, because that deck was extremely fun and not oppressive, and it's just a cool way to play the deck. And
I've never got the chance.
Personally, I would love to play that deck again.
Yeah. But one last thing on that conversation thread as well is we have seen this. We have seen this being done recently with Vincent, and you said this: specialized weapons, specialized equipment, Azalea's crow's nest, Riptide's quiver. You know, there are certain ways you can, in design space, print something that's good, but only for that hero, so somebody else can't abuse it. That's the way you can do it. And then if that thing is too good, then you can ban it in that hero and that hero only. You don't affect anybody else. Specialization equipment, I think, is a design space that needs to be explored more, I think. Or on the reverse of that, as Mara and obviously my point, etc., is banning in certain heroes because that hero can abuse that thing and someone else can't because of their card pool or their weapon or whatever. So yeah, it's a very good conversation point, and obviously the whole topic last week on Living Legends podcast did do well with regards to engagement, and people were very, very interested in the topic, so that's good. And then last but not least is another Living Legends podcast at gmail.com email, which came from Larry H. So thanks, Larry H, for emailing us. Again, the email address is the livinglegendspodcast@gmail.com. These are for more longer takes, longer stories, and longer comments and thoughts and concerns and all that. So Larry says, since Kelly's gone, and he dumps us on Bolton quite a lot, which is fair enough. You know, Bolton does get dumps us on a fair bit because it's just a meme at this point, unfortunately. But what do you think could be done in the future for lower tier heroes for them to be more competitive picks and not necessarily lose just for picking them? Yeah, that is an interesting thing straight off the bat. If you choose a certain hero, sometimes you just think, why am I choosing this hero? It's just going to lose. Bolton is one of those things you get that feeling about still, even after the quote unquote support that they've got recently. So yeah, I feel like we don't see dedicated support for most of them again for a while, and having Bolton not get a whole lot better after DTD has kind of burnt me out on FAB as well. So pushing, I'm just trying to read this because it's very, very small in my document.
Yeah, you took a small screenshot of it.
It is, yeah. Pushing so much effort into my favorite hero to have no moment in the sun, even after a somewhat dedicated set, hurts my motivation. Do you think Flesh and Blood needs to have lower tier heroes and decks in general? And I put a little sort of asterisk on this as well, although that is incredibly bad handwriting because I was trying to write my note with a mouse on the screen.
It never goes well.
It never goes well. It's very hard. But going back to the Living Legends thing, what if there was a way to exclude heroes that had a certain amount of points? So the heroes that were obviously doing well, anyone over 500 points can't play. You can't use this hero in this format or whatever. A wooden spoon division per se that allows people to play the worst heroes, but in a format where the other heroes can't just absolutely destroy you. But just in general, do you think Flesh and Blood needs to have answers, have lower tier heroes and decks in general?
So with just the way that Flesh and Blood is set up, needs to have, as much as it feels bad to agree with that, I think it does just from a game design standpoint. Like, not all decks can be the best.
No.
And there will always be that sort of ebb and flow of decks being good, and then, either through not getting enough support or people figuring out the meta, their sort of overall sort of place in the so-called tier list can fluctuate. So I do think that it is kind of an inevitability for there to be lower tier heroes and decks in Flesh and Blood. I do kind of like the idea of, like you say, having some sort of a format that restricts things a little bit further than what they are. It would be sort of, in my mind, like the difference between, in Magic the Gathering terms again, standard versus modern versus legacy versus vintage. They're all the same game, but you're sort of restricting what the format looks like based on card pool, based on, for them, it would be like how recently things got printed. But I could see for this having some sort of guidepost of, like you say, like anything less than 500 living legend points, having that sort of hero. I think that would be really cool, especially if you take into account like restrictions breed creativity. Like if we look again at the list of living legend heroes, for the ones that have less than 500 points, Viserai is the highest on that list. I think that Lexi is short-lived for this this life.
Yeah.
But yeah, like Viserai, Phi, Katsu, Bravo, Dorinthia, like you wouldn't have your dashes, you wouldn't have Icelander, you wouldn't have, again, Lexi. And that might just create a really cool sort of a really cool space for other decks to sort of live in. It does, again, kind of suck that the Bolton support that was provided didn't quite put them in the same sort of realm as the Azalea support did to her. Although, you know, it made her feel like a more cohesive deck, but if we're just looking at stats again, like she hasn't started performing all that much better, at least in terms of, again, just living legend points alone.
Yeah.
So it's possible that you could argue that they're still kind of in the same boat, but it doesn't feel great to have a deck that, kind of like they had mentioned, like you pick a hero at the start, you're just like, I'm going to pick this hero, and then finding out later that you picked wrong. Like that's such a feel bad, especially once you've put the effort in, you've looked into the decks, you've bought the pieces that you wanted, like Soulbound Resolve and Brave Forge Bracers and like all these things. Like it would feel very not great. So I do agree that there should be something. I don't know what it would look like, but I do tentatively like the idea of sort of like a modern, or like a, however you want to call it, just like a lower living legend point format. I think that would be interesting to see what that meta would look like.
Yeah, and it's fairly it's one of those things you can track as well, because living legend points, you know, update quite often. So if you are going to run one of these events, you just look at the thing, the living legend point for the day, and then that's the only heroes you can run. Everybody below 400. You know, if you look at everybody below 400, you've got Phi, Katsu, Bravo, Dorinthia, etc. So you still have aspects of aggro, you still have access, aspects of control in there. Bravo can go either big stompy or just de-react heavy, etc. You still got the random ones in there like Greiner, which can just intimidate you and all this, and you still got Kano in there of arcane damage.
Yeah.
You know, you still got all these heroes that you could potentially play, but you just don't have the ridiculousness of Icelander sort of operating on your turn and giving you tax and stuff, and then Lexi just outputting so much more damage that you just don't have any purchase in the game. Even in a game of CC, you just can't race it. So as these lower tier heroes, anyway, you can't really do much. Bravo is an exception because obviously he's had a lot of resurgence recently, so it'd be interesting to see how he goes up. But yeah, it could be interesting to see if there would be something like that in the future, because as you say, Bolton is just one of those heroes that at the moment just feels like you lose as soon as you start with it.
It's it would kind of be this sort of potential format would be kind of like the inverse of the Living Legends format. Like obviously the Living Legends format is just for heroes that are that good, and this would kind of be the opposite of that, like heroes that aren't quite on that same level. And I think that that's like a fair thing to keep in mind as well. Like, you know, Riptide has 2 points, and I know who gave him the 2 points, and he's somebody who is completely, fully obsessed with Riptide. Shout out to Mink.
Fantastic.
But yeah, outside of that, like Riptide really hasn't had a shot to do much. And I don't know, maybe we shouldn't, especially in a game where people can put so much of their interest in the game on a specific hero, there should still be a way for them to interact with the game outside of just having to choose another hero, because that feels very bad.
Yeah, especially on a competitive. Well, that's the thing as well, isn't it? If you're playing this game for only the hero aspect, and you're going to these tournaments where people are not doing that, they're playing the best deck, that's when you have that polarity between the two people. So you do need to have, and luckily we are going to have social products coming out. We are going to have PvE coming out, which will allow you to play your hero of choice against something. But I don't know whether that's ever going to be in a 1v1 competitive way, because there's always going to be a best deck that people are just playing regardless of the character that's representing that hero, basically. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see if something like that ever evolves. So that's a good topic there, Larry. So thanks for your thoughts on that. But yeah, anyone that wants to get involved with Living Legends podcast, it's livinglegendspodcast@gmail.com. So send us an email, or just continue just engaging with our content, whether that's on Twitter, YouTube, or through the email address. We are going to be reading out random stuff every week now, just to fill it out when there's not much to fill out. But saying that, me and Bill have been chatting for 1 hour and 43 minutes. Holy hell.
We were able to really fill this out even in Kel's absence, so there you go.
Absolutely. So it's not just Kel that talks a lot, it's us as well. But yeah, finishing this off with tweet of the week. I thought I would put something in here which related to me this week, because Sunflower Samurai are the Spanish team that includes Pablo Pintor, doing this sort of tweet every week which shouts out different aspects of Spanish culture and cuisine and stuff that you can do in Barcelona and Spain in general, because that's where everyone's going, that's where everyone's converging this year upon Worlds. And they're saying the nightlife in Sants, I don't know where that is, but hopefully somewhere in Barcelona, or the region of Barcelona perhaps, is also without the need to take public transportation. Some examples of local favourites are the Birastium for beers, or the Undead Dark Club for metalheads like Go Again Gaming Azz. All in all, not the most touristic, but a nice home base to have. So yeah, basically shouting out me on Twitter because they know that I love metal music and giving me places to potentially go, which is nice.
Yeah. So I just looked it up as well. Sants is apparently a neighborhood in the southern part of Barcelona.
Ah, there we go.
So there you go.
Fantastic. So you may see me there with my GoPro out, just trying to capture every single thing that happens. So yeah, there's going to be drinks. There's going to be a few nights where we go out and do some stuff. Not only me, but obviously us both, Living Legends podcast, and friends, people that meet there as well. So it's going to be a great time. But thanks for shouting me out and sort of recognizing my love of metal music. And there was a little video I put up earlier, actually, of me bouncing on stage and doing some Devil Wears Prada, sort of Asking Alexandria style movements back in the day.
Classic.
So yeah. Any more closing thoughts, Bill, or should we wrap it up for this week?
Yeah, I think we're good. This has been a very full discussion. So yeah, thanks again to everybody who submitted questions and decided to email us at livinglegendspodcast@gmail.com.
Yep.
Because yeah, it just gives us something good to chat about amongst ourselves. And yeah. Always appreciate it.
Absolutely. And thank you very much for the sponsor of this video. You would have seen the clip at the start of the Banish Zone. So this is a local game store out of Wernersville, Pennsylvania. And something that we can shout out for them as well is that they've got their online store actually ready to go now as well.
Yes.
So that's good. So they do loads of different products on there. All the card games you can think of. I was actually looking at their Final Fantasy cards the other day, but I'm not sure if they can. I'm not sure if they can ship to me. We'll have to have that discussion separately. But if you use the code Living10Legends, you can get some money off your first order through them. I believe it works on the online store that is now available to use. So definitely go and check that out when you can. They're lovely. We had a call with them to begin with, and it was just the chap that we're speaking with walking around the shop and showing us the progress of it and stuff. So yeah, very, very good. Nice to have them supporting us. And yeah, if you're a sponsor out there and you have a product that you think is well placed on the Living Legends podcast, and just send us an email at thelivinglegendspodcast@gmail.com. As long as it's not fucking Fiji water, the spam that keeps coming in the bloody email address. Hello, it's someone and someone from Fiji water. I know it's a spam. Go away. But
we've made it.
Exactly. But yeah, don't be afraid to email us at livinglegendspodcast@gmail.com for any form of sponsorship on this show. Again, we had Techlo Crow do a little sponsored episode, and that was just a little one-time thing. So if you want to do a one-time thing, try it out, see how it goes. Let us know, because that funds some good stuff in Barcelona. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Maybe a few nights accommodation will be paid for. So yeah, help us out. You know, it's going to be a good time. But yeah, thanks very much for tuning in. So I've been Azz from Go Again Gaming. You can find me on Go Again Gaming on YouTube and Go Again Gaming AZ on Twitter. As I mentioned earlier at the top of the show, I'm doing a daily series at the moment. So if you want to get a sort of glimpse into my life in general and how boring it is, go and check that out. But yeah, I'm Bill. Where can people find you?
I am Bill from the Spike Feeders. You can find me on YouTube at Spike Feeders Fab or the Spike Feeders. The main channel is not Flesh and Blood related. It is Magic the Gathering, but I have been sort of featuring on there a little bit more frequently. It's been a great time. But other than that, you can find me on social media sites at BillTSF. I don't post very regularly on social media, but if you want to message me or anything of that nature, that's where you can find me.
Fantastic. But yeah, from both of us here at the Living Legends podcast this week, we'll be joined, as always, by Kel again when he gets back from US Nats. I'm sure we'll hear all the stories from his time over there next time to do it all over again here on the Living Legends podcast. Thanks very much for tuning in. Cheers, folks.